Since 1987, the Vortex thrilled guests at Kings Island. It was big. It was fast. It was forceful. It had 6 inversions. And, most importantly, it was absolutely gorgeous. The Vortex towered over Coney Mall, and guests would spend as much time watching it roar through its course as they would actually riding it. If you ask any coaster enthusiast to name the 10 best-looking coasters, it's a safe bet that the Vortex would be somewhere on their list. In addition to looking good, Vortex also sat on the single most valuable piece of real estate in Mason, Ohio. Located between the Beast and Coney Mall, the Vortex occupied a huge plot of land in the most central part of the park. It's essentially unheard of for a mature park like Kings Island to have such a large, centrally located plot of land available. When Kings Island announced that the Vortex would be retired at the end of the 2019 season, coaster fans everywhere started speculating what would replace it. Everyone immediately forgot about the Giga Coaster that was being built only a few hundred feet away, and started thinking about what would be next. As Kings Island started to tear down the Vortex, everyone was convinced that their dream coaster was right around the corner. The future never seemed so bright. And then, the world as we knew it changed overnight. Parks that were setting attendance records in 2019 were suddenly struggling to survive in 2020. The future of new roller coaster development was shrouded in uncertainty. Today, Vortex is gone. In its place is quite literally a massive hole, both in the park's coaster lineup and physically in the park itself. The Vortex plot is massive by any definition. The ride itself sits on approximately 4 acres of land. A plot of land this size in the middle of a major theme park seems like a dream come true, but it gets even better. When you expand the area between the Vortex and the Beast, this plot grows to almost 9 whole acres. When you look at it from an aerial view, it's clear that this spot is large enough to accommodate virtually any coaster design. The sky's the limit. Let's dive into what the future may hold for this piece of prime Kings Island real estate. To figure out what will be built in Vortex's spot, we first need to take a look at the factors that are going to influence this choice. First, Kings Island is a park that draws a lot of visitors, and Vortex is one of the highest capacity rides in the park. The addition of Orion certainly helped in this regard, but Orion alone cannot replace the combined capacity of Firehawk and Vortex. Whatever replaces Vortex is going to need to have a realistic capacity of 1,000 riders per hour. For this reason, I think we should eliminate RMC Raptors and other low-capacity coasters from consideration. The next factor to consider is competition, both with other parks in the region, as well as with other parks in the Cedar Fair chain. A B&M wing coaster may seem like a great option at first, but literally every other B&M wing in North America is within a 5-hour drive of Kings Island. A coaster that takes the inversion record away from the Smiler might seem a great fit, and trust me, it would be, but there's no way that Cedar Fair is going to allow Kings Island to be the park that takes this crown. Let's be realistic, if Cedar Fair decides to go for that record, the coaster is going to be at Cedar Point. Orion showed us that Cedar Fair will make big investments in Kings Island, but not in a way that steps on the toes of their other parks. Kings Island has a very strong and loyal local fan base, but if Cedar Fair wants to grow the park's numbers, they're going to need to attract visitors from out of town. For this reason, it's important that whatever replaces Vortex provides an experience that cannot already be found in other parks in the region. The next factor that will potentially have the biggest influence on Vortex's replacement is obviously money. Cedar Fair just made a huge investment in Kings Island with Orion. But before a single rider could take a spin on this new Giga, a global pandemic shook the industry to its core. Now, instead of bringing in record profits, Cedar Fair is taking out massive loans just to stay in business. This means that Vortex's replacement is likely going to be delayed several years, and when it does eventually arrive, it will need to be a cost-effective addition with a high return on investment. I simply cannot imagine another situation where Kings Island receives another $30 million plus coaster in the foreseeable future. The final factor that we need to take into account is fit for the park. Adding another GCI Out and Back Woody, for example, would not do much to add diversity to the park's lineup. Mystic Timbers has that role covered pretty well already. Sure, Diamondback and Orion are very similar rides, but for the most part, parks try to avoid duplicating their lineup. With the factors being considered, I've identified a few options that will be great candidates to be the next attraction to occupy this location. The first option, and in my opinion, the least likely, is a ground-up RMC hybrid. RMC hybrids provide a great ride experience that is nothing like anything else at Kings Island. Let's be honest, Kings Island has a lot of great rides, but there is nothing with the ejector airtime or overall intensity that an RMC hybrid provides. RMCs are also nice to look at, and I personally feel that one will look great in Vortex's highly visible spot. Another benefit is that RMCs are relatively cheap additions, making their return-on investment case easy to close. While an RMC hybrid would not be the people eater that Vortex was, the larger scale models would provide sufficient throughput to meet the park needs. The biggest factor working against this model is proximity, with Steel Vengeance being only 3 hours away and Storm Chaser being only 2 hours away. There are other RMC options in the region. More importantly, I don't believe that Cedar Fair would build something to upstage Steel Vengeance at one of their parks. Cedar Point's entire marketing strategy revolves around being the best coaster park in the world, and having something better 3 hours south could jeopardize the profitability of the chain's most crucial park. For these reasons, I'm ranking the RMC Hybrid as the least likely option. The second option is a Mack multi-launch coaster. This model of coaster would be completely new to the region, with nothing else quite like it anywhere close by. It would provide a modern launch coaster to Kings Island while also improving the park's inversion lineup. I know that the park currently has 3 inverting coasters, but 2 of these are great candidates to be the next coaster to hit the scrap heap, so proactively adding to the inversion lineup could make a lot of sense. Another thing the Mack multi-launch has going for it is that Cedar Fair has recently worked with Mack rides, and Copperhead Strike is proof that Cedar Fair is willing to put this model in a park that already has a B&M Hyper, Giga, and Invert. I personally think a multi-launch would be a great fit, but I think the price tag is going to hurt the chances of this ride being selected. Mack Rides is known for making smooth, reliable, fun, and very expensive rides. A large-scale Mack multi-launch could easily come in at a price tag in excess of Orion, and in the current fiscal environment, I simply don't think this option is likely. That being said, if Cedar Fair decides to wait for 5 years or longer to replace Vortex, the multi-launch may be the most likely choice. The next option to discuss is the Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster. The Infinity Coaster would be an excellent fit for Kings Island in virtually every category. A larger scale Infinity would provide sufficient capacity, and the coaster can provide unique elements like vertical lips and drops that will be unique to the region. Cedar Fair has recently worked with Gerstlauer, and while I've yet to ride it, I've heard great things about hang time. Infinity coasters can also be very nice to look at, and I think a twisty Infinity coaster with a light package similar to hang times would look great in this prime location. To top it off, Infinity coasters are relatively affordable, and could fit easily into the shorter term budget. While I don't think the Cedar Fair would put something epic like the Smiler in this location, I think a scaled-up hang time would be a real possibility. The final coaster option is a B&M dive coaster. These coasters are big and impressive, and most importantly, they are GP magnets. The unwashed masses absolutely love these things. They provide a good ride experience, great capacity, are nice to look at, and we all know that Cedar Fair loves to work with B&M. While more expensive than most of the other options, the fact that they're built literally across town from Kings Island will help keep costs down a bit. While Valraven already resides at Cedar Point, it's not the park's star attraction, and I don't think that a dive machine at Kings Island would do anything to hurt Cedar Point's status. If I had to place a bet, I would put my money on a dive machine being the most likely coaster to occupy the land previously used by the Bat and then Vortex. We've discussed the coaster options, but I think there is one more choice that might be even more likely than a dive machine. I'm going to warn you now, you're not going to like it. I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but I think that the most likely replacement for Vortex is not a coaster at all. Kings Island already has a great coaster lineup, and coasters are expensive. The budget simply does not allow for another larger scale coaster investment. But there is a giant hole in the ground that's a huge eyesore. Something has to be done about it. Since the installation of Kings Mills Antique Autos, the Coney Mall Midway in this area has been very cramped. Windseeker's the only attraction in this corner of the park, and some guests can't even figure out how to get to it. Expanding the Midway into Vortex's spot and installing several flat rides would be a quick and easy way to close out the eyesore, ease congestion, improve access to Windseeker, and give the park a nice bump in capacity. It's no secret that Kings Island's flat ride lineup is honestly kind of weak, so this would add some much-needed variety to the park. Rides like a Scream and Swing or an Air Race would be loved by the GP, and would fit into the budget. Flat rides might not be the option that we're all hoping for, but they may be the option that makes the most sense to Cedar Fair, particularly if the alternative is leaving this spot vacant for a decade or more. What do you think will replace Vortex? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content from Coaster Center. Until next time, ride on, Coaster fans.